The church bells rang in the distance, their echo traveling across the small town like a reminder that today was no ordinary day. White ribbons decorated the lamp posts, flower petals floated in the breeze, and cars lined up outside the grand banquet hall. Inside, waiters rushed around with trays, setting up champagne glasses, and adjusting the glittering lights for what was promised to be the wedding of the year. But no one knew that before the night was over, whispers would turn to gasps, and one woman would walk away as the name on everyone's lips. That woman was Amara. Amara stood in front of her full-length mirror, staring at her reflection. The dress hugged her curves like it was designed just for her, shimmering under the bedroom light. It was bold, too bold, some might say. A deep crimson red, with a daring slit that revealed just enough leg to silence a room, and a neckline that walked the dangerous line between classy and scandalous. Her fingers trembled slightly as she adjusted the strap. "Should I even go?" she whispered to herself. Because today wasn't just any wedding. It was the wedding of her ex, Ethan. The man who had once sworn to love her forever. The man who had promised marriage but left her, broken and discarded, for someone else. Her best friend, Lila, popped her head into the room. "You're not seriously wearing that, are you?" Amara smirked. "Why not? It's a wedding, isn't it? And I look unforgettable." Lila sighed. "Girl, this is either going to make you a legend or start World War III. "Maybe both," Amara said, grabbing her purse. And just like that, the night of reckoning began. When Amara walked into that wedding, she thought she was simply making a statement. She had no idea her choice of dress would flip the entire event upside down, and force Ethan to face something he'd been running from all along. The banquet hall was already buzzing with laughter and champagne clinks when Amara arrived. The guests turned their heads almost in unison as the doors opened and she stepped in. Silence. Forks hovered midair, conversations died mid-sentence. Even the string quartet fumbled a note. Because there she was, a woman who looked like a walking flame. Bold, unapologetic, and absolutely magnetic. Ethan's mother, seated near the front, clutched her pearls so tightly it looked like they might snap. And then there was Ethan himself, standing at the altar in his crisp black tuxedo, his arm linked with his bride-to-be, Vanessa. His jaw literally dropped. For a second, he forgot to breathe. Vanessa noticed immediately. Her grip on his arm tightened like a vice. "Who is she?" she hissed. Ethan's voice cracked. That's Amara." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "The Amara? The ex you swore wasn't important anymore." Ethan swallowed hard. "I didn't think she'd actually come." If Vanessa thought Amara's entrance was the worst thing that could happen that night, she was dead wrong. Because what Amara had planned would shake the entire wedding to its core. Amara strolled across the room, every step echoing like a drumbeat. She could feel every eye burning into her. The whispers followed. "That's her, the ex," but she didn't flinch. Instead, she smiled, grabbed a champagne glass from a passing tray, and locked eyes with Ethan. It was like time froze. Ethan couldn't look away. And in that moment, everyone could see the truth written across his face. He was not over her. Vanessa's smile faltered, her cheeks reddening with rage. She leaned in closer to Ethan. "You'd better get your head straight, because she's not ruining my day." But Amara wasn't just here to make an entrance. No, she had something to say. Lila slid into the chair beside Amara, whispering fiercely. "You're playing with fire." Amara sipped her drink, then let it burn. The ceremony began, but the tension was thick. As the vows were exchanged, Ethan stumbled over his words, his eyes darting toward Amara more than once. Each time, Vanessa's knuckles whitened. When the officiant asked, "Does anyone object to this union?" the entire hall collectively held its breath. No one spoke. Not yet. But Amara's lips curled into the faintest smile. Because her moment hadn't come. Yet. The vows may have been spoken, but Amara wasn't about to stay silent. And when she finally opened her mouth, her words cut sharper than any blade. During the reception, Ethan found himself drifting toward Amara like a moth to a flame. He cornered her near the champagne table. "What are you doing here?" he demanded in a hushed tone. Amara raised an eyebrow. "It's a wedding, Ethan. Free food, free drinks, good music. Why wouldn't I be here?" "You know it's not that simple," he whispered, his voice trembling. "Maybe not for you," she replied, her eyes glinting. "But for me? This is just closure." Vanessa spotted them from across the room, her face twisting with fury. She stormed over, her designer heels clicking like gunshots on the marble floor. "Closure?" Vanessa snapped. "You had your chance with him. Now he's mine. So whatever little stunt you're trying to pull, save it." Amara leaned in close, her voice low but cutting. Funny. You sound more threatened than married. The crowd around them gasped. Even the DJ faltered mid-song. Ethan's face turned pale. Amara, please. But Amara wasn't done. Not by a long shot. What Amara said next didn't just leave Vanessa speechless. It exposed a truth Ethan had buried for years. And once it came out, there was no going back. If you think Amara's entrance was shocking, just wait until you hear the secret she's about to reveal. Trust me, you won't see this coming. Make sure you hit that subscribe button right now, so you don't miss what happens next. The music throbbed faintly in the background, but all eyes were locked on the confrontation at the champagne table. Vanessa's jaw was clenched, Ethan looked like a deer in headlights, and Amara stood tall, radiant and unshaken. She swirled her champagne glass, as though nothing could rattle her. Then, with a calm smile that contrasted the storm brewing around her, she said, You know, Vanessa, when Ethan and I were together, he used to say something I'll never forget. He told me that the person he married would have to be the one he trusted with his deepest secret. I wonder, has he told you that secret yet? The crowd froze. Even the waiters, balancing trays of hors d'oeuvres, leaned in. Vanessa blinked. What are you talking about? Ethan's face drained of color. Amara, don't. But Amara's eyes gleamed. No, really. Has he? Because if he hasn't, maybe today is the perfect day to finally share it. The whispers started. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Vanessa's lips trembled as she turned to Ethan. What is she talking about? Ethan opened his mouth, but no words came. His silence was louder than a scream. The wedding had been on the verge of disaster before, but now it was seconds away from total collapse. And the secret Ethan had buried was about to explode. Vanessa's voice rose, sharp as a knife. Ethan, tell me right now, what is she talking about? Amara set her glass down, her voice slicing through the tension. I'll tell you, Vanessa, because unlike Ethan, I'm not afraid of the truth. Ethan grabbed her arm, desperation in his eyes. Amara, please. Don't do this. She pulled away. Oh, Ethan. You should have thought of that before you left me for her. The guests held their breath. No one moved. Amara's next words dropped like a bomb. Ethan was never really in love with you, Vanessa. He was in love with the image of you, the perfect little trophy. The truth is, when he left me, it wasn't because he didn't care about me. It was because he couldn't handle the fact that I knew his past. The part of his life he's so desperate to hide. Vanessa staggered back. Past? What past? Ethan's hands shook. Stop it, Amara. I mean it. But it was too late. The crowd was hungry for answers. And Amara was more than willing to feed them. If the guests thought Amara was bluffing, they were about to find out how wrong they were. Because the truth Ethan had buried for years was more explosive than anyone could have imagined. The DJ quietly lowered the music. Even the bride's parents leaned forward, straining to hear. Amara locked eyes with Ethan. Do you want me to say it? Or should I let them keep believing the fairy tale? Ethan's chest rose and fell rapidly, his tuxedo collar suddenly suffocating. Please, Amara. Not here. Not like this. Vanessa shoved him. Tell me the truth. Right now. Tears welled in Ethan's eyes. Vanessa, I wasn't honest with you. There are things about me, things I thought I left behind. The tension in the room was unbearable. Amara leaned closer, her voice low but clear enough for all to hear. He used to live a double life. You think you know him as the successful businessman, the clean-cut fiancé. But before all this, Ethan ran with people who weren't just dangerous. They were criminals. He was in so deep that even now, he's still looking over his shoulder. A murmur of shock tore through the crowd. Vanessa stumbled back, her hand flying to her mouth. No, you're lying, she whispered. He would have told me. He would have. But the look on Ethan's face confirmed it all. The wedding guests thought they had seen everything. But Ethan's silence proved one thing. Amara wasn't lying. And now Vanessa had a choice: walk away, or face the man she thought she knew. The groom's best man stepped forward. Ethan, is this true? Ethan lowered his head. I made mistakes. Years ago. I thought I buried them. I thought I could start fresh. But Amara, she knows things no one else does. The crowd erupted. Vanessa's parents stood in outrage, shouting at Ethan. Guests whispered furiously, some pulling out their phones. Vanessa's face twisted with betrayal. You mean to tell me I've been planning this wedding for months, standing beside you at this altar, and you never once thought to mention that you were... What? Some kind of criminal? Ethan reached for her hand. Vanessa, I've changed. I swear. I'm not that man anymore. Amara's laughter rang out, cold and sharp. Oh, Ethan. You can put on the tux, wear the ring, and smile for the cameras. But some things? They never change. The wedding was already in ruins. But what Amara did next didn't just end the night. It sparked a chain reaction that no one could have prepared for. Amara raised her glass one last time. "To the happy couple," she said, her voice dripping with irony. "May your marriage be as honest as the man you're marrying." With that, she downed her drink and set the glass down with a dramatic clink. The guests gasped. Vanessa shoved Ethan away, tears streaming down her face. "I can't marry you. Not after this." The officiant closed his book, shaking his head. And just like that, the wedding was over. But this wasn't the end. Because as Amara turned to leave, Ethan grabbed her wrist, his voice breaking. "You think you've won, Amara. But you don't understand. Telling them the truth doesn't free you. It drags you back in. And now we're both in danger." The color drained from Amara's face. "What are you talking about?" Ethan leaned close, whispering words that made her blood run cold. "They know you were with me back then. And if they find out you're the one who opened your mouth, you're not safe." Amara came to the wedding to make a statement. Instead, she walked straight back into a nightmare she thought she'd left behind. And the enemies Ethan once ran from? They had just found their new target. If you thought Amara's bold entrance was shocking, wait until you see what happens when Ethan's past finally catches up to them. The danger is only just beginning. Make sure to hit that subscribe button right now, because you won't want to miss next. The once celebratory ballroom now looked like a war zone of broken trust. Champagne glasses sat untouched, flowers wilted under the heavy silence, and all eyes followed Amara as she strode toward the exit. But Ethan's words replayed in her mind. "They know you were with me back then. You're not safe." She stopped mid-step, her heartbeat loud in her ears. Slowly, she turned back to Ethan, her eyes narrowing. "What do you mean by that?" she demanded. Ethan's lips trembled. His voice dropped to a whisper. "They're still out there, Amara. The people I once worked with. They don't forgive. And if they think you've opened your mouth, you'll be their target before the night is over." The crowd murmured in confusion. Vanessa, still weeping, screamed, "Who are they, Ethan? What is going on?" But Ethan didn't answer her. His gaze remained locked on Amara, his face a mix of guilt and dread. Amara had walked into the wedding to expose Ethan's secrets. What she didn't realize was that in doing so, she had placed herself directly in the crosshairs of the very people Ethan had been running from for years. Amara's voice shook, but her stance was firm. "You're lying. You're just trying to scare me into silence." Ethan shook his head frantically. "No, Amara. Listen to me. The group I was tied to. They don't let things go. They've been watching me. If they know you've spoken out." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. The ballroom doors suddenly creaked open. Every head turned. 3 men in dark suits stepped inside. They weren't wedding guests. Their presence was sharp, heavy, and commanding. Their eyes swept the room like predators scanning prey. The music cut off completely. Vanessa gasped, clutching her chest. "Who are they?" Ethan's face turned ashen. "They're here." The guests thought the drama was over. But as the men in suits advanced, it became clear. This wedding disaster was just the beginning of something far more dangerous. The leader of the 3 men, tall and broad-shouldered with a scar running down his cheek, smirked as his eyes landed on Ethan. Well, if it isn't Ethan. We were beginning to think you'd forgotten about us." Gasps filled the room. Ethan took a step forward, shielding Amara instinctively. "You shouldn't be here." The man chuckled. "Oh, but we should. You see, word travels fast. And word is, someone's been talking." His gaze flicked toward Amara. The crowd parted, everyone whispering in horror. Vanessa backed away, her dress sweeping the floor as though distance could shield her from the truth. Amara's breath caught in her throat. She realized then, Ethan hadn't been exaggerating. These men were real. The danger was real. For the first time, Amara realized she wasn't just exposing secrets. She was standing in the middle of a storm that could destroy everything, including her own life. The scarred man stepped closer, his smile fading into a hard line. "Now, Ethan, we need to know. Has she said anything else? Did she tell them everything?" Ethan's fists clenched. "Leave her out of this. She has nothing to do with it." Amara spoke up, her voice shaking but loud enough to echo. "If you want answers, talk to me. I'm not afraid of you." The room gasped. A bold statement from a woman in a bold dress. The man's lips curled into a smirk. "Courage. I like that. But courage doesn't keep you alive." 2 of his men began to move toward her. The guests scattered, some fleeing the ballroom entirely. Vanessa screamed, "This is insane. Someone call the police." But Ethan spun around. "No. You don't understand. If the cops get involved, it'll only make things worse." The wedding had descended into chaos. But the true battle was just beginning, and Amara was standing at the center of it. Amara squared her shoulders, her eyes blazing. You want the truth? Fine. I'll give it to you. Ethan may have worked with you, but he's not your pawn anymore. And I'm not afraid to expose every single one of you. The scarred man's smile vanished. His tone grew icy. Careful, darling. Threats like that have consequences. He snapped his fingers. One of his men pulled out a phone, making a call. Within minutes, the sound of motorcycles thundered outside. The ground trembled as more men arrived. The guests screamed, rushing to the exits. Ethan grabbed Amara's arm. We have to go. Now. But Amara stood frozen, torn between running and standing her ground. Amara had walked in to reclaim her dignity. Instead, she found herself facing an army of enemies, and the only person who could protect her was the man who had broken her heart. As the motorcycles roared louder, Ethan pulled her toward a side door. Please, Amara. Trust me this once. If you stay, you won't make it out alive. Her eyes locked on his, searching for any trace of the man she had once loved. Against every instinct screaming at her, she nodded. Together, they slipped out the back, disappearing into the night. But as they vanished, the scarred man's voice echoed through the ballroom. Run as fast as you want, Ethan. We'll find you. And when we do, she'll pay the price. Amara thought exposing Ethan at the wedding was the end of their story. Instead, it was only the beginning of a deadly chase that would force her to decide. Run from the truth, or fight back against it. If you think the wedding was dramatic, wait until you see what happens next. Amara and Ethan are running for their lives, but what they discover on the run will shock you even more. Subscribe now so you don't miss next. The night air was cold against Amara's skin as Ethan pulled her into the shadowed alley. Behind them, the sound of motorcycles still rumbled like thunder, a storm that refused to fade. Where are we going? Amara whispered, her heels clicking against the pavement as she struggled to keep pace. To the only place they won't expect, Ethan muttered, glancing over his shoulder. His grip on her hand was firm, urgent. She yanked her hand free, glaring at him. You've lied to me before. Why should I trust you now? Ethan paused, chest heaving. His voice cracked with sincerity. Because if you don't, Amara, they'll kill you. And I can't let that happen. Amara wasn't sure which was more dangerous. The men chasing them, or the emotions Ethan's words stirred in her heart. They darted through back streets until they reached an abandoned warehouse. The iron doors groaned as Ethan pushed them open, ushering her inside. The space was dark, dusty, littered with forgotten crates. A faint beam of moonlight cut through the cracked roof. This used to be one of their drop points, Ethan explained, pulling out a hidden bag from beneath a crate. Inside were passports, stacks of cash, and something that made Amara's stomach twist, guns. Her voice trembled. You planned for this? You've been running this whole time. Ethan nodded grimly. I knew they'd come back eventually. I just didn't think it would be tonight. Amara had come to the wedding to confront Ethan. But now she was trapped in his world, a world darker and more dangerous than she ever imagined. Hours passed in tense silence. Amara sat on a crate, hugging her knees, while Ethan kept watch by the door. Finally, she whispered, Why didn't you ever tell me? Ethan's eyes flickered with pain. Because you were the only good thing in my life. I didn't want to drag you into this mess. Her heart tightened. For a moment, the bitterness she carried wavered. She wanted to hate him. But sitting there in the shadows, she remembered the Ethan she once loved. The boy who made her laugh, who held her hand under the stars. But before she could reply, the sharp sound of footsteps echoed outside. Ethan froze. His hand went to the gun. They thought they had found refuge. But in the darkness beyond the door, danger was already closing in. The warehouse doors burst open. Flashlights cut through the gloom. Ethan, a voice boomed. It was the scarred man. You can't hide forever. Amara's pulse raced. She pressed herself against the wall, barely breathing. Ethan raised the gun, his jaw tight. The men entered slowly, weapons drawn. Their shadows stretched long across the cracked floor. The scarred man smirked. You know how this ends, Ethan. Hand over the girl, and maybe we'll let you live. Amara's chest tightened. Her instincts screamed that Ethan would sacrifice himself for her. But when his eyes met hers, she realized. He wasn't going to run anymore. No, Ethan growled. You want her? You'll have to go through me. For years Ethan had run from his past. But now, cornered and desperate, he was ready to face it head-on, even if it meant paying the ultimate price. Gunfire erupted. The deafening cracks echoed through the warehouse. Amara dropped to the floor, covering her head. Sparks flew as bullets ricocheted off metal crates. Ethan returned fire, his every move precise, desperate. 2 of the suited men went down, but more stormed inside. The scarred man laughed through the chaos. "You're still the same reckless fool." But then something unexpected happened. Amara spotted a steel lever near the wall. It looked like it controlled the old loading dock doors. She crawled through the hail of bullets, fingers shaking, and yanked it down with all her strength. The massive doors slammed shut behind the men, trapping them inside. Ethan seized the moment, tackling the scarred man to the ground. Segment Hook 5. For the first time, Amara wasn't just a witness to Ethan's chaos. She was part of the fight. And the choice she made next could decide both their fates. The scarred man writhed beneath Ethan, snarling. "You think you can protect her? You'll never escape us. We always come back." Amara grabbed a fallen gun, her hands trembling as she pointed it at him. "Not this time," she whispered. The room fell silent. Ethan's chest heaved as he looked at her, shock and admiration in his eyes. But before she could pull the trigger, the scarred man sneered. "If you kill me, 10 more will take my place. Do you really think this ends here?" His words hung in the air like poison. Amara's finger shook on the trigger. Amara thought the wedding was the climax. But here, in the warehouse, with her finger on the trigger, she faced the most terrifying question of all. Was she willing to become like them to survive? Amara's finger hovers on the trigger, but one choice could change everything. In Next, the shocking conclusion will reveal who walks away and who doesn't. Subscribe now so you don't miss the ending. The night had grown colder, but inside the abandoned mansion, the heat of confrontation was suffocating. The walls, once grand, were now cracked and hollow, yet they echoed with every word, every breath, every unspoken fear. Raven stood at the center of it all. Her bold dress shimmered faintly under the broken chandelier, her eyes like blades cutting through the darkness. She wasn't just the femme fatale anymore. She was the storm everyone feared would come. Across from her, Marcus shifted uneasily. His arrogance from earlier was fading, his voice cracking as he barked. "You don't scare me, Raven. You're just a woman with a gun and a big mouth." The crowd behind him chuckled nervously, but their laughter died quickly when Raven raised her hand. Not with the gun, but with a single finger, pointing directly at Marcus. What Raven said next made even the toughest men in that room freeze in their tracks. Raven's voice was icy, but steady. "Marcus, you've been writing your own ending this entire time. But the pen? The pen was never in your hand. It's been in mine." Gasps echoed. People shifted, whispering. Who really held the power here? Marcus tried to laugh it off. "You talk too much. Why don't you just—" Bang! The chandelier chain snapped, crashing down inches from his feet. Dust exploded into the air, glass shards cutting his cheek. He stumbled back, eyes wide. Was it an accident? Or did Raven just send a warning shot that no one could ignore? Tension rose higher. Raven stepped forward, heels clicking like a metronome of doom. "Do you see now?" she said softly. "Every move you've made, every deal you've tried to cut, every threat you've whispered. I've been 2 steps ahead. You never controlled this game." The men around Marcus looked at each other, doubt filling their faces. Loyalties were crumbling. Marcus roared, desperate. "She's lying. Don't believe her." But Raven cut him off with a smile. "Am I lying, Marcus? Or do you remember that night in Vegas, when you thought you buried a secret so deep, no one could ever dig it up?" Marcus froze. His face turned pale. What secret from Vegas could shatter everything Marcus had built? The silence was deafening. The men leaned in, waiting. Raven continued, each word like a blade. "I was there. I saw what you did. And I have the proof. Do you think these men will follow you when they know the truth?" Marcus's knees buckled. His empire, his fear, was crumbling. The room shifted. Suddenly, all eyes were on Raven. Respect. Fear. Awe. Marcus tried one last time. He lunged at her. In a flash, Raven's gun was out, pressed against his forehead. The room froze. Raven whispered, "Game over." But did Raven pull the trigger, or did she have something even more shocking in mind? Instead of firing, Raven lowered the gun and tossed it across the room. Everyone gasped. Marcus looked confused, trembling. "This isn't about killing you, Marcus," Raven said. "Death is too easy. You're going to live, but everything you ever owned, every shred of respect, every ounce of fear people had of you, it belongs to me now." The crowd erupted. Half cheered, half panicked. Marcus fell to his knees, defeated. His power was gone. Raven walked past him, bold and unstoppable. The men stepped aside like waves parting for the storm. Raven's final move wasn't destruction. It was domination. She stood at the doorway, looking back one last time. To everyone watching, she declared. Remember this night. The queen doesn't need to kill the king to rule the board. She just takes his crown. The room thundered with silence. Everyone knew a new era had begun. Raven left, her silhouette glowing against the moonlight, untouchable. And that, my friends, is how Raven rewrote the game, without ever needing to fire the final shot. But tell me, if you were Raven, would you have pulled the trigger? Or would you have done the same? Let him live, but take everything from him? Drop your answer in the comments. I'll be reading every single one. Smash that like button if Raven's twist gave you chills. And most importantly, hit subscribe right now, because the next story I have for you is even wilder than this one. Trust me, you don't want to miss it.